I wanted to pose a question to y'all today. And that is, can you genuinely love more than one person at the same time? What do you think? I kind of have talked about this before. I've mentioned this before in one of my past videos talking about poly and stuff. It came up today when I was talking with my friend today at lunch. And it's really not that controversial. I really do feel like the answer is yes. I actually came to this conclusion many years ago, many years ago, actually, while I was a teenager, in my late teens. I really thought about it because of something. I don't remember what, but anyway, it came up. I don't know. Anyway, maybe I was thinking about it. I just remember thinking about it way back then and realizing and understanding that, yes, you actually can love more than one person, at the same time. And, the reason why is because I feel and I believe, and I've continued to actually believe this the older I got, like even after having kids and stuff, like understanding that the human heart is very expansive, right? The human heart can hold a lot of love. And we know this to be true because why? We are made in God's image, and God is love. And he loves all of us simultaneously, right? And the angels, right? Jesus, like he literally loves all of his creation at the same time. And so we're made in his image, and our heart is very expansive and it's very big. And yes, we can actually be in love with more than one person at the same time. And sometimes you might love one person, right? Like you might actually be in love with one person and have love for the other. And so obviously this came up because we were talking about poly. And I know there's a lot of men out there who, I suppose this is their dream. But whenever I actually break it down and actually get to the root of what their dream is, it always seems to stem back to, or what I always notice is that men especially dream of basically having the ability or the option to have relations with more than one woman or multiple women at any given moment because of, I personally believe because of their, the testosterone and the sex drive of a man or whatever, and him having that desire to have multiples, whatever. And maybe interchanging that, or maybe thinking that that's him being in love with more than one woman or whatever, which you can be. And then interpreting that to mean that he wants poly. But again, I, personally feel that maybe in some countries and stuff, I know that they still practice this and it's acceptable and it's accepted. And even here, I know people here that it's accepted and it's okay, right? And yes, I do feel like it is possible for a man to literally be in love with more than one woman, or a female too. And honestly, I feel that way about kids. Like, it's the same thing with your kids, right? I mean, you definitely love your kids. You love your kids the same or more or whatever. Like you love more than one child, right? You love all your kids, however many you have. You literally have love for all of them. But it is true that you will usually be closer to one child, and there'll be one child will be considered the golden child, or the good one or whatever. And then there might be one that's like the black sheep or whatever. So but anyway, it is possible. Yeah, it is possible. especially, you know, I feel like, you know, if you are around women who agree to that type of a lifestyle, you know, like, if you're in an area or a land and that's, you know, that's what floats your boat and that's how you want to live or whatever. And especially when it comes to sharing expenses and taking care of everything on your island or in your kingdom or whatever, right? Would I participate in anything like that? That's a no. Affirmatively, no, no, no. And, oh, okay, not happening. Not for this chick over here. I feel like over here in this country, you know, even if you can find a woman who agrees to allowing you to have that type of a lifestyle, you know, I think that you are inviting a lot of other problems. One thing that you're inviting is the risk of STDs. That's number one. Okay, so that's like, that's number one. Okay, that's a big risk. And then the other thing is jealousy. And also, you know, unfair treatment, right? One woman might get better treatment than the other woman or whatever, or multiple, however many women or whatever, and that could really pose to be a problem and cause a lot of jealousy, right? But some people just have, you know, that type of relationship where they are open or whatever. And, you know, that goes against my beliefs. That definitely goes against my Bible-trained conscience. But more than that, even if it wasn't a Bible-trained conscience, and even if it had nothing to do with God or whatever, and I don't want to hear about it because I know God allowed it back in the day when I understand, like, I don't want to talk about that. Okay, I don't want to get into all that. But, like, even if it wasn't for that or whatever, I know for me personally, the only way that I could actually be okay with that is if I really wasn't all the way in with that man. If I really didn't actually love that man, like really, really, truly, like really, really, like really in love with him, then yes, then I might agree to something like that. Especially if I did not want to take care of his physical needs. Then I absolutely would be like, yep, please go ahead and find you another Sally, Susie, Rashida, Chiquita, whatever. Okay, find somebody else because I don't want to do it, right? If I actually felt that way. So I do know and realize, like, a lot of people find themselves in relationships that they got into way too young, or they got somebody pregnant, you know, or they ended up having children with somebody, and as it turns out, they're not actually really compatible for the long term or whatever, but, you know, or maybe they're halfway compatible or a little bit or whatever, but it's like, you know, they're like a different person now. They're like a different person now than when they originally met that person. And you really are, bottom line, just no longer interested in that person, you know. That may be the mother of your children or whatever, but you have like zero desire when it comes to that person. And I have heard this several times. I mean, I can't tell nobody what to do, right? I have my opinions, right? And, you know, I can't tell nobody what to do. But what I know for sure for me, okay? Because I love too hard. And if I love that person, if you're my person, and I love you, like, all the way, I know that I don't want to share you, that's for sure. I know I do not want to share. I don't want to compete for your time. I don't want to be put on a shelf. I don't want it to be like my day on Friday. I don't want to not be able to call whenever I want to call. I don't want to be able, you know, I don't want constraints. I don't want any constraints on my love whatsoever, right? Because I want to be able to love freely and as much as I want. And I want it to be open, like, okay? And if indeed I don't really feel that way in my heart for that person in front of me, I would just rather walk away. I mean, honestly, I would if that man in front of me, like, you know, it's just, for me personally, when it comes to love, and now where I am now, as far as so far removed from being widowed and everything, and being knocked on my butt by that whole experience, right? And me being back to who I am genuinely as a person, which really I started coming back online at the end of my divorce. Okay, to my second husband. Was when I started coming back online, like, you know, I need to get in alignment with myself, with who I am, right? And so for me personally, I can't fake anything. I can't fake anything. And I feel like everybody comes to a place in their life at some point where you don't want to look at the person in front of you and know that they really don't like you like that. Like, they're not really attracted to you, or, you know, you can't satisfy them, you don't satisfy them, or you don't want to look at your partner or your mate and know that their heart is really somewhere else. Like, I know for me personally, I wouldn't want a man who I thought that his heart, or his mind, his dreams, his desires was for somebody else, or even slightly somewhere else. Like, me personally, I feel like that is a losing battle. I feel like that is a battle that I'm not willing to fight, because I feel like nobody can control the heart. The heart wants what the heart wants. And it is such an individual blueprint of a thing. It is such a unique, sorry people, sorry, I'm looking at this person behind me. It is such a unique thing, right? That, like, what lights a person's soul up and what lights a person's life up, their heart, what gets their fire going, is going to be different for each person. And for me personally, I don't take it personal if I'm not that person, because literally, like I always say, everybody ain't for everybody. I'm not for everybody. And I feel like if you can light up one man's life in your life, then you've hit success, you know, like. And to be able to actually do that for maybe another man, right, to me is just like, that's like extra blessing. That's like extra love or whatever. Like, I don't know. I just feel like that you have an extra, you've been kissed by Jehovah God a little extra to be able to have genuine, real love more than once in a lifetime. You know, some people, like, really, if you only have it once, right? But like, I know that people get married or get, like, I know for a man, there's physical needs and there's physical reasons why they want to interact what might feel like on a loving, in a loving romantic way or whatever, but you know, there's a physical part, and then there is the other part to actually being in love, right? So the other part to actually being in love is the action part, right? Like, how you show love, and who you want to spend your time with, right? The sacrifices you'll make for that person, and the expressions. And then there is the inside part of you, the inside, like the secret person of the heart, right? It's like, who do you as a man, you might have had relations with several different women, right? Several different women. But in the quiet times, maybe when you're driving or working, or when you are doing the mundane things of life or whatever, and you think of, where does your mind wander to? Who? Okay, if it's a particular woman, particular person, right? Or let's say if you have certain memories or certain, like as you're thinking or whatever, and you have a smile that's brought to your face, and you're like smiling, like something makes you happy, like, whatever, like, oh, I remember that or whatever, right? Or when you're laying down in bed and right before you're going to sleep, like right before you close your eyes and go to sleep, it's that person that you are thinking of, right? That you're like, I hope they're okay. I wonder what they're doing right now. I miss them, or that person that you're thinking of, okay, that comes to your mind on a regular basis, like, God forbid, while you might even be doing the act with somebody else, okay, because I've heard of that, okay, like, that person is the one that you love. That's love. That's real love. That's love. Because that person can be halfway across the world. It doesn't really matter, right? But it's that person who is controlling your heart, or your mind, your desires, your thoughts, right? Your wish, like, especially if that's the person, if like you want to make a decision, or you want to ask your opinion about something, or, you just need an additional, you want someone else's thought on something, right? And you always think about that person, that girl, right? That person. Or whatever she says, like, you really value her opinion, or you value her thoughts or her insights, or you just really want to know what that person thinks about XYZ, right? That's all love. Like, that's all love. That's somebody that you really love, especially if that person motivates you to make a change. If that woman motivates you to make a change in your life, to do better things, to better yourself, if you are a better person around that woman, because she has motivated you better, to do better or be better, whatever the case is, like, stop drinking sodas. Because I talked about that a while ago. Or whatever the case is, right? That woman is the one, that's what love really is, right? So because of all of those things that I said, it makes you want to, even more so, you want to have the more physical side, right? But what happens when you have all those things, like the heart, the mind, the thought, the desire to talk to interact with, or whatever, to get their opinion, to change, and all of that, and then you add the physical part, right? Which then becomes more intimate. It's a more intimate thing, and it's an expression of love, right? And it's not just an act of a desire, or a physical need, okay? Which a lot of times when you want to be poly or whatever, and you have, let's say you have a high drive or whatever, and every woman that you've been with or whatever has never been able to take care of that, and therefore in your mind you're just like, I need poly, you're like, I have to have more than one because of that, right? And yet you have this one person over here that is kind of like taking up your mental and your heart, right? Then, you know, the other person that you might be involving in this physical action or whatever will feel jealous. She will feel jealous. Because your mind is always wandering over here, or your eyes are always over here, right? It's like you're always looking in this direction. She's over here, but you're looking over here. And that can really cause a lot of friction, to say the least. Okay, but like, I think that a lot of times men, they get confused when I've seen this happen, even to men that are older. Even men that are older and maybe, you know, they just never really seen like love. They didn't see people married growing up. They didn't grow up around that. And they get confused. And they think that this right here is, you know, is what's driving them. And they might think that this is, they love that person. Like, they might actually think like this is like love. And, you know, that's kind of sad, you know, but that's not actually, wanting to do that act is not actually what love is. Okay. Doing that act is like a cherry on top. It is like the whip topping on top of your banana split. Okay. And when you're with the right person and you have discussed all those things, you know, and you can come to a agreement on doing that action or whatever. And if there is a real attraction, and when you're dealing with, when you're not dealing with a one-sided love, when you're not dealing with a one-sided love, meaning like, you know, one person is really into you, but the other person is not. Or one person is truly, truly into you, like you're their soulmate or whatever, but the other person is like, I'm not really that attracted to you, but I do like you or whatever. And if the guy is like that, which is what I see a lot, they might think it's love, or they do have love, but they're not actively in love. Their mind and their heart is mentally not there. You know, you're not going to see eye to eye when it comes to the activity and how often you should do the activity, right? You're literally going to be, you're going to feel left open, and you're going to think that, well, I must want an open relationship, or I must want poly, or I must need more than one person, right? But actually, like, that's not really the case. What's really the case is that you just don't have the right person. Sorry. I'm just keeping it real. You just don't have the right person. Because I have seen in my own experience, not only have I experienced this, but I've also seen with my own eyes that when two people are really genuinely attracted to each other, and there's a real genuine love, there's a real love that's there. They're mentally into each other, physically into each other. The attraction is there, and all of that. The amount of times that the action takes place is not only agreed upon, but like, it's not a problem. It's just not a problem. And so it's like, yeah, you might love more than one person, you know, but what I always see is that while you might love more than one person, your heart and your mind is usually pulled to one person in particular. that you're more in love with and actively in love and wanting to interact with that person. And again, this is so unique and special for each person that there should never be, it's like, nobody can fault each other. So whether it's 2 men, 2 girls, whatever it is, nobody can blame themselves for not being the exact blueprint, QR code, whatever you want to say, that other person is looking for. Because it's just so unique. And and for me personally, I don't take those things personal. This is why I'm not jealous. I've never been the jealous type. I've never been jealous because it's like saying, it's like me wanting, blueberries and a taste for blueberries, and somebody brings me grapes. It's not personal that I want blueberries. That instead, I don't want grapes. I want blueberries, right? It's literally such a unique thing that, I think that you shouldn't take things like that personal. You shouldn't take things like that personal. Because I think that men sometimes, because men are so visual, and not all men, but I would say like the majority of men, in my opinion, have a kind of low threshold or a low, like what they want in a woman. Or maybe they didn't think about it or whatever, but it's kind of like, well, I'm doing this deed. I had this child with her or whatever, or she's halfway pretty, or I've just known her forever, or she doesn't argue with me or whatever. So it's almost like, well, it's like, I guess I love her. And then as they get older and they start maturing and becoming more of their own person and everything, and as they get older or whatever, and they start realizing like, wow, there isn't really any spark there, or there isn't any real, like, the vibes are not vibing. And when they feel that spark or vibe with somebody else and they get zapped by that, they're like, whoa, what was that? What am I feeling? Like, wait a minute. Do I really? It's like, it's such a huge difference. It is a huge difference from just dealing with and putting up with, or just conceding, like just, cheaper to keep her kind of thing, whatever. Okay, there's a huge difference between that and a person that actually lights your world up. Somebody who you actually want to interact with on a regular basis, like you want to get in their mind, they want to get in your mind. Like you want that constant, like this, feedback, pinging. Like, because I have a degree in computer networking back in the day, and there's something called, I took a course, one of the courses was called, classes was called binary code. You have to learn binary code programming. And, power, no power, no power, on and off, anding, okay, pinging, right? It's the computer is, constantly pinging, okay, and it's constantly looking for power, no power, it's pinging. And that is unique for each person. But when you experience that difference, where you genuinely are wanting that constant interaction, pinging from this particular person, this particular energy here, this vibe, right? And it could be for a mixture of reasons. Maybe because she's intellectual, or maybe, not only just because maybe you think she's attractive, but you like, maybe she's artistic, or maybe she is a singer, maybe, she plays chess like you, or checkers, or, whatever. You like horses, she like whatever that is, right? That draws you in to where you want this constant interaction and pinging, And then it's very natural that you have those moments where you also want to be intimate. And that's when the action of doing this thing becomes more than just, sex, but becomes more of a intimate, loving, real situation, and then if you do have this other person or whatever, and you're not feeling that, A, I know as a woman I would be able to tell that, but B, you'll find that you're kind of like not interested because you've had this more elevated experience, right? And again, because it's so unique for each person, it literally is so unique. Like you can't plan these things. You can't plan this out. You can't know this in advance, right? It just is what it is. The sparks are just there. The energy is just there. The vibes are just there. The feeling is just there, right? And when it hits you, that's what I say when Cupid's arrow hits you. Like when you get hit by that love bug, you notice the difference right away. Okay? And most men, I feel like, because in the beginning of their life, it's just such a thing that they fall into, and they're not really thinking about it, or they haven't matured. Because men, they say their frontal lobe doesn't actually even develop until what? It's after 25. Because women's frontal lobe fully develops in around 18, and men's, I think it's around 25 or right around there. So it's like you're not even your true self really until around that point. So, if you got with somebody under 25, or 25 or under, whatever, likelihood of her being your everything is probably very low. Not to say that it doesn't happen, because it absolutely does happen. My parents were one of them. They were best friends, and they grew to love each other. And, well, they always loved each other, but, they were soulmates, and that was figured out right away. Some people are fortunate like that, but a lot of people are just not. Like, a lot of men are not, and this is what I noticed. And then they might be thinking like, oh, I just want poly. And it's like, really and truly, can you actually handle the constant interaction that most women, I think, want, right? And life, and kids, and or whatever, your job, or whatever. And in actuality, here in this country or whatever, I don't see that most men can do that. Now, granted, I will say I've met a few men who were mentally draining, to say the least, to me. And if a guy is mentally draining to me, first of all, that is not a guy that I want to lay down with. First of all, that is not a guy that I want to marry. That's number one. But when I feel mentally drained by a man, and I know that it takes a lot to drain me mentally, and he still has energy left to go. Yeah, that's only happened a few times, and those are the only men that I noticed that really could probably handle more than one woman. And that's mainly because I don't know if their brain was bigger. I don't know, but it's like they tend to be, and this is the truth. I mean, this is the truth. I noticed that those men that I'm talking about, those intellectual type, they're just not normal. They're not the norm of what I see in most men. And I've met them, but they're so few and far between. I'm talking about, I can count on one hand how many I've ever met. And those guys are, I don't know. I just feel like there might be, I'm sure there's a woman out there that could handle them, but what I've seen is that they do have a hard time finding one woman that actually can encapsulate their mental, can actually keep them mentally engaged. And I don't want to call them freaks, because we need those smart kind of guys. We need those guys, in the world. But they're just so few and far between. But those would be the only men that I have seeing that could literally easily juggle. Now, whether they want to or not, you know, that's to be seen, you know, whether they want to or can afford it, you know, if they can afford more than one woman, you know, and I don't know. But can you be in love with more than one person? Yeah, you absolutely can. You can love more than one person. You can love more than one child. You can love more than one pet. You can love more than one whatever, right? But you're going to usually tend to have a favorite. And you will tend to be more in love and have a more desire to be around one in particular. You usually will experience that. One will be usually more your where your heart and your mind is. And so, like I told my son in the past, when you meet that one person in particular who you know is like just the perfect fit for you, when you just know it, like when you can tell they're a perfect fit, they will never leave your brain. They will never leave your brain. They will never leave your heart. They will never leave your heart. You will never forget about them. My mom, like, you know, you hear people say, my mom used to always says, you can't unknow what you know. You can't unknow what you know. Because once you know, you can't unknow it, right? But you also don't know what you don't know. So when you first get with somebody or whatever, and if you're young or whatever, you know, and you don't know what you don't know, because you've not actually met that one person, right, at that time. And that happens. But you can't unknow what you know. And when you have that one person, they will always literally be in your heart and in your mind. And usually you can't go a day. You usually don't go a day without thinking about that person. And it could be years and years and years and years. And a day doesn't go by where you don't think about that person. Or, like I said, in those quiet moments before you fall asleep at night, when your mind wanders to that person, that's your special person. Whoever your mind wanders to as you're falling asleep at night, that's your special person. That's who your special person is. Whoever it is that you're constantly wanting that interaction, that pinging, that person will affect you like no other. Sometimes just hearing that person's voice, if she's a female, can cause chemical reactions inside of you. If you're a man, it can cause all kinds of reactions just by hearing that person's voice. And I've been told that, okay, and I've seen that to be true. But only not every woman is going to have the ability to do that. Now, you can work yourself up. You know, you can, you know, but just from hearing a person's voice or whatever without even seeing them, and you have a reaction. Or, this is the other thing I've noticed, is whoever, when your phone rings or you get a text, whoever you're hoping is that person. Whoever you're hoping is texting you or calling you or messaging you or, you know, whatever, leaving you a voicemail, whatever. Whoever you hope it to be, that's also your person. That's your person. That's who you're really in love with. There is a difference. Obviously, there's a difference between having love for somebody and being in love. And so if you can be in love with somebody, and you can find that person for you, like, then, you know, the likelihood of you having the desire and wanting to split your time up, your heart up, your money, your everything, to split yourself up into, different directions for different women is going to go down. Your desire for that is going to go down. The likelihood of you wanting to, it's just, you're going to find that if you actually have that person who does that for you, you really don't want to be anywhere else. What did they say? When baby wants to be underfoot, right? When you have your small child, when you have a baby, your small child, your knee baby, whatever, and they're always on your foot. They're always over here. You always want to be by your mom or whatever, right? That's what it kind of feels like when you find your special person. You don't really want to ever detach. It's not that you don't ever spend time, because obviously you work, you have to do things, whatever, and you spend time apart. You have to be apart for all kinds of things, right? But the desire to recuperate from each other and to be apart is not really there when you find that special person, because that special person completes you. They complete you and you feel whole. You just feel whole. So it's like, if you are with that person days on end, it's like, that's great. And if you're not, that's great. And I'm going to give you an example of that. When I was, years and years and years ago, when I was married to my late husband, we had a time where we had 3 hurricanes back to back to back. Oh, it was terrible. Oh, it was terrible, terrible, terrible. I forget what year was that. I forgot what year that was. I don't remember what year that was, but was it 2004 or 2005? I can't remember now. Anyway, we had 3 hurricanes back to back to back, and every time, when a hurricane comes, or whenever any storm comes, you usually lose power, and then like the way it works, is like the main roads will get the power back first, and then you'll start getting power back eventually in the streets and in the homes and the suburbs or whatever, right? But like the way it happened, because of the way it happened, our house could not get power back on for like it was almost a month. It was literally just shy of a month, because like I remember the barbershop got power because they were on the main road, but like we didn't get power in our house, and so people were messed up. People were just messed up. Food and everything was just hard. Everything was hard, right? And so it was hot, summertime, but everybody was basically just stuck in the house, just stuck in the house for days and hours on end, and just, nothing to do. And just like during COVID, right? Just like during COVID, I say some people came out of COVID divorced or booed up and married, right? And it's like, when you're forced to be around each other, you will know what the truth is. When you're forced to be in a situation where you got to literally look at each other for days on end, hours, for just days on end, like in that situation where we had no power, nowhere to go, nothing. I mean, it was like you couldn't even really get gas either, because a lot of stuff was down. So there was a lot of time where literally, at least it was definitely for us, it was definitely like almost a month, but there were days, like days and days and days. I mean, we literally, I remember we did nothing, but we hung out, we played games, we read to each other, took a nap, we fell asleep, it was just like, but I can remember literally thinking, even when it was over, when the time was over, I can literally remember thinking like, oh, that was kind of fun. Like, it's like we had no choice but to be around each other. And we enjoyed it. We actually was like, oh, this is kind of like a vacation, except for a staycation, because you're at home. And time just went by, though. I mean, it's like, it was inconvenient because we didn't have electricity, but on the other hand, time went by like really fast. Time, like, it just kind of went by. But when you're not with the person who you feel that way with, that is like a death sentence. That is like a prison sentence. That just feels like a never unending like torture. And you're not over here like, oh, I want more time to look at this person. You're not. You're trying to get away. You're like, what can I do to get away? You know, let me come up with any excuse to go to the store, do anything, but to hang out, you know, to be with that person longer than what you need to be, right? That person, though, the person that you can literally do that with and that you don't mind being laid up with or stuck in the house or whatever, you know, that's genuine love, in love, and also very good companionship and good vibes, good energy. That is something that you cannot predict. It don't matter how good a person looks. It doesn't matter how fine a person is, how beautiful a person is, how handsome, whatever. That doesn't matter. That helps. That certainly helps, but it don't matter. I mean, I have met people that I felt that were very physically handsome, beautiful, good looking, but I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt I would not want to be stuck anywhere with that person. That person was annoying. Like, I could only handle so much of that person, right? And you know, when you're young or whatever, maybe, you know, if you feel like you just have all kinds of time left, maybe you want to waste time in your life, you know, years in your life with somebody like that. But at some point you do come to a point in life where you're like, okay, you know, babies are done or whatever, you know, like, I really just want to enjoy my time with somebody I genuinely love, and I only want to spend my energy on a person like that. You just don't want to waste time with somebody who that there is like not a genuine, real feeling for, okay? You know. Anyway, these are just my thoughts. These are just my opinion. This is my opinion. This is just my thoughts. This is how I feel. This is like my outlook, my POV, point of view, the way that I see things based on my experience, right? So anyway, I just share my thoughts. Oh my God, it's 47 minutes. Like, seriously, I promise I always I say I'm going to keep these videos short, and I just start talking, and yeah. I'm a talker. What can I say? I'm a talker. I've been this way my whole entire life. Anyway, bye.